If your squat looks like this, but you want it to look like this 10-minute routine is going to save your squat. To get a nice, sexy, deep squat, we need ankle mobility, knee mobility, and hip mobility. And within this 10-minute routine, I'm going to give you 6 exercises to get a deeper squat. First off, let's check out your ankles. In our squat, our ankle mobility either limits or encourages our knees to go over our toes. So I'm going to give you 2 exercises that are going to allow you to sit deeper into your squat. First off, we're going with the calf raise. The reason I like the calf raise to increase your ankle mobility is we have massive dorsiflexion at the bottom, and then we have plantar flexion at the top. And instead of just holding a stretch like we would to be flexible, we can go through a range of motion to keep us mobile. See here, this is encouraging our toes to come close to our knees, which is what we want when we're squatting. And then at the top, this is taking us to the other end of the range of motion at the top. So I want you to go through 10 reps of this and sitting 2 seconds down at the bottom, and then driving and spending 2 seconds at the top. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. The main part we want to focus on is sitting down at the bottom and stretching out our calves down here. A couple of things to think about when we're doing the calf raise. When we're at the bottom, I want you to think of driving your heels to the floor. And then when we push up to the top, I want you to think of driving your heels over your toes. And that's going to give you an extra couple of centimeters at the top. Heels to the floor, hold for 2, and then heels to the toes, hold for 2. Obviously, you can implement this in the 10-minute warm-up routine, but you can also do this when you're training calf raises in your leg workout. So not only are you getting jacked calves, but you're also getting mobile squat. Now, the second exercise. The front foot elevated dumbbell split squat is my most favorite leg exercise, hands down, simply because of the benefits that it has in bettering your squat. How to set this up? You're going to need something to elevate your front foot. I'm using a step here. You can use 1 weight plate or 2 weight plates, whatever feels best for you. 1 weight plate is closer to the ground, so you're going to potentially get less range of motion and less of a deep stretch. And with 2 weight plates or a step that's a little bit higher, you're going to be able to get more range of motion and potentially push your knees further over your toes, which is the goal of this exercise, to increase your ankle mobility. With the setup, we're going to put our working leg on the front, so I'm going to use my right foot, and then my left foot back where it's comfortable. We may need to adjust this later, but we can do that as we go. Now, what we're going to do now is pretty much try to get our butt all the way down to our heels, or we can look at putting our hamstring onto our calf. Another cue that I like to think of is if my finger was a pencil, trying to squish the pencil. So it's going to look something like this. I'm coming through and I'm sitting here. Obviously, I've practiced this exercise and I have pretty good ankle mobility, so my knee is quite far over my toes. So this is going to translate very well when I go to squat, because this is pretty much like a single leg squat. So if I can do this with both of my legs, when I'm doing a back squat, I'm going to be able to sit very deep. So my butt is pretty close to my heels, my hamstring and my calves are kissing, and I'm squeezing that pencil in between my leg. And then from here, I'm going to push back up. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm thinking of being on an escalator. So I'm going forward and down, and then I'm going back and up. I'm not thinking that I'm on an elevator and I'm just going up and down, because this isn't challenging my ankle mobility. This is. So I'm pushing that forward. Also, if you want extra benefits, you want to keep a nice upright trunk. That's going to help us when we're back squatting reduce something called butt wink, where our lower back rounds at the bottom of our squat. So we have a nice upright trunk. We're getting a stretch through the back leg. The hip flexors and the rectus femoris are getting a nice deep stretch here, and our quads are getting lengthened and stretched in this exercise as well. So we're pushing back up here. So in the 10-minute routine, what I want you to do is come down, sit here for 2 seconds, 1, 2, and then push back up. You can put your hands on your hips to give them a place to live. 1, 2, and up. And then I'm gonna swap sides after I've done 10. Another thing that I want you to think of is making sure that your knees are in line with where your toes are pointing. So as we're coming down here, my knee is in line with my toes. My knees aren't externally rotated, and they're not too internally rotated, and I'm not getting knee valgus or my knees pointing inwards. They're just going where my toes are. 1, 2, and pushing up. The last thing that I'm going to say is my feet aren't straight in line with each other. I like to think of my feet on railway tracks. Even though they're not beside each other like this, one's in front of the other, but they're on railway tracks as opposed to being on a tightrope. Coming in, 1, 2, and pushing up. That covers our ankle mobility. Now let's move up to the knee. In order to increase our knee mobility, we need to strengthen the muscles surrounding the knee joint. First off, we're going to start with an exercise called the shin box, which is going to help strengthen the adductors. First off, what I want you to do is sit back on your hands with your feet in front of you, just slightly wider than your shoulders. Now what we're going to do is try and touch one of our knees. We'll start with our left and bring them down to our right foot. So what this looks like is me coming here. So now I'm just going to adjust my feet and my hands a little bit just to get my starting point here. I want to try and keep my hands down on the floor. If I'm coming up like this, I can no longer feel the stretch through the inside of my thigh. So I want to keep my arm here. Now for me, I'm not the most mobile person, so I can feel this in the inside of my leg. And now I'm going to come back up to the starting position. Now all I need to do is do it on the other side. If you notice a significant difference where one leg is tighter than the other, then I want you to start with that. But if they feel relatively the same, then I just want you to roll. Now, when you get to the bottom, I don't just want you to chill. I want you to drive your knees to the floor for 2 seconds, 1, 2, just to make it intense at the bottom of the rep. 1, 2, and coming down and across. 1, 2. Now what I can feel personally going on in my body is this side is really hard, not just in my lower body, but also in my upper body through here, which shows I'm a bit tight on my right lat and also in my right leg, which is true because my right side of my squat always feels a little bit tighter than my left. 1, 2, coming up, 1, 2. And for the 10-minute routine, I want you to do this 10 reps per side. So this will be 1 rep, 1, 2, and then this is going to be the other half of the rep, 1, 2, and then you'll go again. So 20 reps total. If you want some bonus points and you really want to take your mobility even further, what I recommend is doing this. So you drive your knees down, 1, 2. Then you come to this upright position here and drive your left knee down into the floor and then bring this heel up. This is going to work your hip internal rotation muscles. So 1, 2, that's up. And then once I'm finished that, I'm actually going to bring this one even further. I'm almost going to face the back and I'm going to sit down here and this is going to give me a deep stretch in my glute on this side. So 1, 2, and then I'm going to come back to the start and do it to the other side. So this comes down, 1, 2, and then I sit into this nice upright posture here. And this is called the 90-90 lift off. And then I bring this ankle up, 1, 2, I find that quite difficult. And then I'm going to reach this hand over this leg, face the back, and then come down and get the stretch in my left butt. Trying to bring my nose to the floor, nice deep stretch. And then coming back up to the start. That's just a bit of a more advanced version of the shin box if you wanted to add in 2 other stretches. So that's not just doing your knee mobility, but it's also looking into your hip mobility as well. A bit of a future glance into the next portion of this video. But to stay on the knee mobility, the next exercise that we're going to do is called the reverse Nordic curl. You're not going to need anything to set this up but a mat or a nice soft place for your knees to sit onto the floor. So I'm going to use this mat that I prepared earlier. And I'm going to come up onto my knees like this. And what I like to do is get quite wide with my knees and bring my toes in like that instead of being out like that. We definitely don't want to point them out, but we bring them in like this. And I'm just going to cross my hands here. And what I'm going to do is keep my body as plank-like as possible, squeeze my glutes, squeeze my abs, and actually tuck my chin to switch off my lower back. And I'm just going to fall backwards. 2-second hold at the bottom, this is really painful, and then I'm coming back up. A common mistake that I see people make is because it's really hard at the bottom, what they'll do is they'll put their head forward and then it's really easy and just kind of curl up. But in this position, your head is actually quite heavy, so it's making it harder to go up. So as soon as you put your head forward, what you're doing is actually making the exercise much easier and putting less stress on your quads. So this is going to strengthen your quads and make them more mobile so that as you sit down into the bottom of your squat, even though it's not this exact position, your quads are going to be familiar with being lengthened, which is going to help you get into that nice deep squat. So arms crossed, Knees nice and wide, toes touching, and sitting down. Staying nice and plank-like, chin tucked, and then just squeezing the quads to get up. This is a very hard exercise, so I'm going to show you a regression of the exercise so that you can do it if you struggle to do a bodyweight reverse Nordic curl. What I've done here is tied a resistance band around the squat rack so that when I lean back, the further I get away from the squat rack, the more it's going to help me to come up. Obviously, if you don't want much help, you can use a thinner resistance band like this yellow one here, or position yourself closer to the squat rack. If you want more help, you'll use a thicker band and you'll be further away from the squat rack. This is what it's going to look like. To be quite honest with you, that's a more realistic exercise for you to implement. And once again, you're doing 10 complete reps with a 2-second pause at the bottom. If you can't go all the way down, use a resistance band. Even if that's hard for you to get that maximum range of motion, just go as far as you can. Spend 2 seconds at that point where it completely sucks to be, and then come up. Repeat it 10 times. And as you get stronger, you should be able to use a thinner resistance band and even progress towards doing a bodyweight reverse Nordic curl. Now that our knees are feeling nice and mobile, let's go up to the hips. These last two exercises are going to help our knees align with our toes as we squat. There are two different types of people when they squat. Sometimes people will push their knees out too wide. Sometimes people's knees will be caving in too much. Now these two exercises are going to help you with that. The first one that you're going to do is hip abduction, which ultimately just means bringing our knee out to the side. If you find this hard, you can do it body weight. Stand on one leg, so it's going to take a bit of balancing, or you can hold on to something like a squat rack or just a pole, and you can stand here. And what I want you to do is, whilst keeping your knee parallel with the floor, you can bring your knee out as far as you can whilst keeping this the same. If you twist that leg, it just makes it easy and defeats the purpose. So keep this fixed, nice and straight, knee up, and then you're going to be driving out like that. Coming back to the front, and then driving out like that. That's hip abduction. Now, to make this more challenging, you can use a resistance band, obviously quite thin, because this is going to be a rather challenging exercise. So as I clumsily put this around my knee, I'm going to bring this down to knee height. Boom, 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 boom. If I just stay in this position where I am, what the band is going to do is actually roll up to my hips like that, and it's going to be quite awkward. So what I'm going to do is stand on a bit of a 45-degree angle so that when I get into my final position, the band isn't going to move. So let's come here. Now, all I'm doing is driving my knee out and open to where I think it's good, and then I come back to my starting point. Now that I'm in a better position, and the band is actually around just below my kneecap, I'm going to drive my knee out while staying still, keeping this leg straight as far as I can, and then coming back. And again, and coming back. Just going as far as you can manage. It may be handy to film yourself so you can see how far you get. And once again, you don't need much resistance for this to be hard. And if you can't handle the resistance, just go back to doing something body weight to getting that full range of motion, and then adding a little bit of resistance. Obviously, you're going to do that both sides, 10 reps per side. The second exercise is going to be the complete opposite of this. So if I was to stand here, I'll stand facing the camera first. You'll bring your knee to the finishing point of that exercise, or the halfway point, and then I'm going to bring it back in. Now this is really stupid and easy to do on your own. This is like no resistance, it's not even hard. So get this resistance band. Once again, I'm gonna step through it, putting it just below my kneecap, and I'm going to get to a point where, once again, starting 45 degrees. So I'm here, and I'm bringing my knee into the center point and back out. Just gonna bring this higher. My knee's here, and I'm bringing it in to the center line, and then back out. Into the center line and back out. Once again, you can grab something if you need it to be stable, but this is the move, and we're doing it 10 reps per leg. Now, once you've finished this 10-minute warm-up routine, you can jump into doing your squats. But if you still find yourself struggling to do a nice, deep, sexy looking ass to grass squat, here's a tip that can get you there really quickly. By elevating your heels in a squat, you automatically better your ankle mobility. And this is going to allow you to sit deeper in a squat automatically. But keep in mind, this is just a quick fix. This doesn't actually increase your ankle mobility. However, it does get you used to the feeling of a deep squat. And over time, as you implement this 10-minute routine, you're going to have a sexy squat that you have with elevated heels with normal flat shoes on. This is what my squat looks like with elevated heels. This is what my squat looks like without elevated heels. As you can see with my heels elevated, sexy ass to grass squat, nice upright trunk, great exercise to strengthen the quads and also increase the mobility of my squat. But when I take away the heel elevation, I still have a pretty good squat, but you can see at the bottom I'm more bent over, which isn't a bad thing. It's just what I have to do at the bottom of the squat if I don't have heel elevation. You can use this type of squat as a tool to artificially increase your ankle mobility, but keep in mind that this doesn't actually fix the core of the problem, which is that you don't have great ankle mobility if you can't sit deep into a squat with normal shoes on. But if you have access to these shoes, it can be. These are Olympic weightlifting shoes. Now, quite a lot of bodybuilders use them. They just call them lifting shoes or squat shoes, but these are originally called Olympic weightlifting shoes that are used in the sport of Olympic weightlifting when they're going for things like clean and jerks and snatches to give them more range of motion in their squats and more mobility so that they can perform these challenging exercises. And the reason that it does that is the exact reason why heel elevated squats are better. As you can see by the design of these shoes, the heels are elevated. This part is elevating the heel just like the weight plates were in the previous squat that I showed you. So if you're really committed to bettering your squats and you just really like squatting nice and deep, then these are great. You can also use them on the leg press to get more range of motion, on the hack squat to get more range of motion, and even Bulgarian split squats and other exercises that we alluded to earlier, like front foot elevated dumbbell split squats. And all it does is give you more ankle mobility, just like the weight plates did over there. Personally, even though I have a okay squat with flat shoes, I like to squat in these anyway because I like to get nice and deep. I don't know, just something about a nice deep squat that just feels so amazing. And that's why I made this video. I hope it helps. I'm going to put up on the screen the 10-minute routine that you need to do on your leg day, preferably your squat day, because that's going to help you warm up to your squats. But remember, the key point of all of this is make sure that your technique is great. Get into good habit. I don't know why I'm pointing at you with a shoe, but get into good habit. If you squat with bad technique just to get low or just to lift a heavy weight, then you're never going to get as strong as possible. You're never going to get as muscular as possible, and you're never going to train as injury-free as you could if you trained with perfect technique. That's always the goal. If you're lifting a weight that you have to adjust your technique to lift, that weight is too heavy. Maybe that's next week's weight. Think about that. And if you really enjoyed this video, then you could watch me do a workout video, nice, slow, paused squats where I'm implementing the techniques that I talked about in this video. Go check it out.